This is a World on Water Vendee Arctique Race, Dock Walk Special. It was prepared by British Vendee sailor, Hare.
Good morning from the race village in Les Sables. We've got in a little bit early this morning, so for those of you that can't make it here, we thought we'd take this opportunity to give you a bit of a dock tour and talk about some of the boats that I'll be racing against and the skippers that are in the fleet. And because I'm not great on the boat still yet, we've got Joff here, who has been in the fleet for over 20 years. You can tell by his grey.
Thank you.
And hopefully we'll kind of give you a bit of an insight into the kind of key features of each boat and what we might expect from this race. So starting with the most beautiful boat in the fleet.
In the fleet, for sure. It's our Pride and Joy Medallia 2. Won the race in 2016, third in the last edition, so very good history, good record of reliability, and yeah, our boat. How do you feel about it?
I think, well, it's a strong boat. In terms of performance, we're kind of in an interesting part of the fleet, because this 2016 edition was the first edition to be designed with foils, and we still have the small foils. So there's only one other boat in the fleet that has small foils, and that's Damien Sagan. Everyone else with kind of sister ships to this has already upgraded to bigger foils, so we would expect to see a better performance than quite a few other boats in the fleet. But the small foils for me are a bit easier to handle at the moment, so it's kind of a good entry level step for me going forwards. So let's move on up the dock to our neighbour. And we are next to Bank Populaire. So this is being skippered by Nico Lundven. Clarice, who's Bank Populaire's regular skipper, she's pregnant. She's due to have her baby during the Route du Rhum. And so Nico is racing this year. And their boat is a 2007 Fino Conch. So no foils on this one, but it's got dagger boards. Anything else to note really on this one?
No, it's quite unlucky. It was the last boat launched in 2007 for the 2008. Actually, it was launched in 2008 for the 2008 race, and lost its rig, I think, in the first couple of days. So it was only sailing for like 2 months.
Oh wow! And it was raced by Damien Sagan in the last race.
He did
Group
loads of work to it. So it's new rig. Done quite a lot of work to the back of it. Damien did a really good job on it. And Nico did well in the last race.
He did really well, yeah. And this is a stopgap for Bank Populaire. So they have bought
Pivia.
a Pivia. Yes, they've bought a Pivia, but they won't get it until the end of this year. And so they're racing this one just to kind of keep the points going in the IMOCA Globe Series. Moving up the dock now to Group Setan. So this is Manu Cousin. Probably the smiliest skipper in the fleet. Again, it's a non-foiling boat, and the same boat as Manu raced in the Vendée Globe, where he came 23rd. But he's done quite a lot of work to this over the winter, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's done loads. Again, new rig, new back end, new rudders. I think this has probably done the most miles in the fleet. It was launched as Verbac Paprec. And then the Spanish guys had it, so it did a lot of Barcelona races, and I think it's probably done nearly every Vendée Globe pretty much since it was launched. So I think it's probably done the most miles in the fleet. But yeah, loads of work has been done to it.
You can see on the back here he's got 2 hydro generators, just flipping up on the back there for his power generation. We've actually got internal hydro generators on our boat, so we put scoops down and we've kind of got turbines inside tubes, but he's got the ones that are like outboards that flip down off the back. A little bit of a gap here, and the gap, we're missing Eric Bellion, who's making a return to the fleet after his 2016 Vendée Globe, and Eric's actually sailing in Jean Le Cam's old boat. He's got a new non-foiling boat in build, and he's using Jean Le Cam's old boat to qualify during the next year. And then we're moving on to a boat that Joff knows very well. So this boat is being raced by Zabi Verez. So Zabi is a Hungarian sailor. He's done Olympics, America's Cup, now moving on to the Vendee Globe. And I think Joff can tell us all about this boat.
I built this boat in New Zealand for D for the 2008 race. And then we did the Barcelona, and then it sat in a field not far from here for several years. And then we dragged it out of there for Hare for the 2020 race. And now he's sold it on to Zabi. So
this boat's done a lot of miles.
It has done a lot more, but it was put out to pasture for a lot of years. So it hasn't. So it's not. It's done 2 Vendees, Barcelona race. I think Taste, it's been on a tight budget when Hare had it. I think Zabi's in the same position, so there's not many modifications. But it's a really beautifully built boat by Paul Hakes, and we put a lot of money and effort into it when it was built. So it's been it's a solid, reliable boat for those guys. It's good.
And main difference between this boat and the other 2 non-foiling boats that we've just looked at are that this one doesn't have a rotating rig.
It does, but it's within the spreaders. So
okay. That's quite different then.
Yeah, I think it's the only boat left. The group setting started off with that rig, as did the old Gamesa.
So
it rotates within those spreaders.
Hence the diamond lower down. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's a bit, I don't know. Seemed good at the time, I think we'll say.
Okay, so the next boat on is a 2006 Phare, which was Compagnie de Lee. So this one raced in the Vendée with Clément Giraud. So this is now being sailed by Seb Marset. It's Capagé Ensemble. Seb has done, Seb's done a lot of offshore sailing. So he's done mini transats, couple of Jules Verne attempts with Spindrift, and he's done the ocean race as well, so he's definitely got a few miles under him. So up the dock again to another non-foiling boat. There's quite a few non-foiling boats in this race. So this boat, freelance.com, this boat is being sailed by Gerek Saudi. I don't know if I pronounced his name right, but those of you who follow social media will probably remember him as the French guy with the hen Monique. So he sailed around the world with his little red hen Monique and ate nothing but rice and eggs when Monique was in the mood. He is the youngest sailor ever to sail the Northwest Passage. He did that at 24. And this boat has had quite a few owners, hasn't it?
And it's been sunk twice, half sunk twice and recovered.
So it's a 2007 Phare boat. Can you remember? Tess now, can you remember who sailed it?
It was built for the Barcelona race as a Estrella Dam. And then it was BT with Sebastian Joss, I think, for that race. And then he got smashed in by a massive wave, I think, and broke the coach roof and stuff. So he was pulled out into New Zealand, I think. And then it became Hugo Boss.
Yeah, it's been a Hugo Boss. Yeah.
The 2012 race, and in fact I worked on their project not within the team but as an outside sort of consultant to help with reliability and just sort of monitoring progress really.
It's got quite a nice cockpit actually.
Yeah,
there's quite a lot of cover there.
He was third I think in this boat.
Right,
And Benjamin Detroit did a really good job in the last race, so it's a quick boat. Certainly it's probably the quickest of all those Phares of that generation, I think.
Yeah, it looks good. So moving up the dock now, another non-foiling boat, 2007 Phare. So this one is being sailed by Louis Duke, and Louis has done a lot of miles in class 40s. He's a really well-known sailor in France with some success and a lot of respect, and he bought this boat from Clément after the TJV in 2019 when it caught fire just before the start, and Louis bought what was left of the hull and has stuck it back together. Very sadly he dismasted. Did he dismast on the way back from the TJV or during the TJV last year?
I'm not
sure. So he's since sticking it back together, he's dismasted but managed to get another mast, and here doing his Vendée qualification. So I think we're the odd one out on this pontoon having foils, aren't we?
Yeah, biscuits ours aren't very big.
Oh.
So there, because the boats are so close together. So
We've only got little foils.
we'll be on that pontoon next year.
Okay, and moving on, we have Monoyer Duo for a Job. So this is being sailed by Benjamin Hare. He's only 31. So he's done, he sailed across the Atlantic with just a sextant, and then he did a solo world hitchhike before doing a mini transat. So he's a bit of an adventurer, Benjamin. And this is a 2010 VPLP Vendee, so it was formerly Massif. I don't really know a lot about this boat.
No, well, there's only 2 boats left, I think, sailing that were built for that race. It was quite, I think, because of the recession, there weren't many boats built for that race. And one of them's sunk since, or 2 of them have sunk actually since. So it's one of those ones left standing. But really, quick boats. There's quite a quantum shift between 2008 and 2010. So it's still got classic boards, but it's a quick boat for sure.
Nice.
For a classic boat. It's one of the, it'd be one of the biggest classic boats.
And now we're moving on to Denny van Wijnberg. So Denny is a Belgian competitor, and he's aiming to be the first ever Belgian to finish the Vendée Globe. I know he kind of was trying to put a campaign together for 2020, but in the end didn't make it. So he's back again for 2024 in Laboratoire de Biarritz. Thank you. And this boat was built by Nandor Farr.
Home built basically. So I think he was sort of involved in the design of elements of it, and then built. Was in charge of building it. I think it's based here. It's only based here when Nandor had launched it. He did the 2016 race. Nice project.
And so this one really does have a rig that doesn't rotate.
It definitely,
Yes.
Is classic as you
get. Yeah. That actually does remind me of Super B.
Yeah.
Very much.
I think that's a new rig out, I don't.
Okay, and now we're moving up to Antoine Cornick in EBAC Littery. So this is a 2005 Owen Clark that was formerly Spirit of Canada, which was sailed by Derek Hatfield, and it was shipped over to France in 2019, I think. Jack Boutel was hoping to get a campaign together with it, and now Antoine has it. I think this is the only remaining boat with rudders that don't kick up by the looks of it.
Probably, yeah. So I mean, it's classic Owen Clark, really. And again, it hasn't done that many miles. I think it did the Around Alone or 5 Oceans, whatever it was then. But again, he's put he's put the standardised rig in, and it's completely reworked it. You wouldn't really recognise it from the boat. Well, it used to have twin wheels. You can kind of see where the remnants of that would have been. And I think this boat took a long time. I think it was like 2 years in build because they kept running out of money. So it's sort of like a 2004 design, but I think it wasn't launched until after that. But yeah, no, it's nice to recycle boats and put a new rig in it and revamp it, and it's still going.
So it's quite interesting looking at this one, the position of the dagger boards compared to all the other ones. The dagger boards are right outboard, and these ones, the dagger boards are inboard. So why did they move outboard then over time?
So basically that configuration was to sort of try and get the board as upright as possible for upwind, so that was sort of vertical. When you're heeled, that the dagger board is vertical in the water. And by the time we got to the 2010 boats, they were more looking for lift to lift the boat out of the water, and they've conceded that upwind actually isn't that important.
No one wants to go upwind.
And even in the that sort of classic coming up the South Atlantic on the way back, it's just not it's not worth having that much emphasis on upwind, I think.
We've moved up to the foiling end of the pontoon, and starting with Jeremy Biu's Chorale. So a bit about Jeremy. He's a triple winner of the Figaro. He's started the Vendée Globe 4 times, and his best finish was in 2016 when he was 3rd. Last time he was the winner of the Vendee Arctique Race. and this is the boat that he raced in the Vendee Globe. He's got a new one in build. So this is a 2018 VPLP. What can you tell us about this, Joff?
Yeah, well, he launched early. I think it was the first boat launched for the last race. And then he had a load of problems like 3 days into it, and had some structural stuff and something else, I think, and had to come back. So that was kind of it, which is a bit of a shame when you sort of put so much effort into being early and having all that time on the water, to then have something break a few days into the Vendee is incredibly disappointing. So they've got a new boat in build. You can there's sort of quite strong themes now in the boats, and you can actually age this by its foils because it was built quite early in the programme. So its foils look quite old now, actually, if you compare to a Pivia, which there's not such a quantum shift this time around. So all the latest boats, if you look at PRB, which we looked at the other day, their foils are much more similar, and the way they're controlled is much more similar to a Pivia than if you compare Charal and a Pivia. But that's one of those things, you trade maybe a year of design for a year on the water.
Yeah.
And then sadly in this case they weren't rewarded with all that.
There's some interesting features here though. So how the kind of the back deck is solid, so the backstays go in through there and underneath, and actually the way the cockpit's quite deep too.
Yeah.
I quite like this cockpit cover arrangement actually.
Yeah.
That looks
nice.
quite good. Yeah. Right. Moving on up then. So our next one is Group Apostille. So this is our sister ship, effectively. This was Matricock in the last Vendee, and it's now been bought by Damien Sagan. So Damien Sagan is a triple Paralympic medalist. He's raced class 40s. He came 7th in the last Vendee Globe. Pretty awesome sailor, and this is very similar to our boat. So it's a 2015 VPLP. It was originally Saffron, Matricock in the last Vendee. He's still got the small foils like us. Has he changed that cockpit cover? Does that look different from when we looked at it?
I don't think so.
Oh, looks quite comfy.
Different paintworks maybe to made it stand out. But yeah, really nice boat. Really clean when Saffron built it. Very simple systems.
And they've got the funky see-through boom thing.
Yeah, that's a Saffron boom, which is a sort of military defence company. So they've got a lot of technological expertise in things like that. And of all way, when they sponsor their boats, they put a lot of effort into designing the rigs, designing the keels. So it's a good technical partnership between the sponsor and the team. And that's one,
I quite like what they've got on the transom here as well. The kind of solid cover over there. I think that's one of the kind of upgrades we're thinking about to make it, because I've just got fabric ramps on the back of my boat, which does make it quite hard to slide sails across. So can I have something like that, please?
You can. And I think they've built out an environmentally friendly or more environmentally friendly product. Well, I'm not sure.
Looks like it's been built out of cardboard, actually.
I think it's advanced ecological cardboard, which is good for something that's non-structural. If we can do more things like that in the class, it's probably a good thing.
And then the next one up the dock is Louis Burton, Bureau Valet. So Louis came 3rd in the last race, and we bought his boat, and he moved on to this one, which is a San Manuel design. It was L'Occitane, and it's got funky foils, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, it's got the biggest foils in the physically the biggest size foils in the fleet. We were in the shed next to them when we were turning our boat into Medallia, and when you see those things out of the boat in a shed, they are huge. And very difficult to put in the boat from what we saw.
Yeah, and it's something else. My actual first experience of foiling was on this boat with Louis, and it was just clean out of the water. Unbelievable, just wild ride, and Louis sails it like a madman. So I think probably if I was gonna put my money on top 4 runners in this this race. Sherelle would be in there, Louis would be up there as well, I think, and probably, well, and Apivia, definitely,
And Thomas.
and Thomas Rion as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Moving on to L'Ami Caline, so Arnaud Boissier. Arnaud's kind of the local hero in Les Sables d'Olonne, sponsored by French Greg's, L'Ami Caline. So this boat is a VPLPE boat that was adapted to take foils for Sam Davies. So in the last race, this was Initiative Coeur. What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, well, it's the other, as I was saying earlier, it's the second boat from 2010 that's survived. But Sam, put a lot of, she did the foil change. It's got a slight variation of the standardised rig, and she actually changed her sail configuration. So normally we have like 3 upwind headsails on the boat, which I think the sort of trend that was sort of coming from 2004 onwards, really. And she actually went back because she's not. It's similar to a one design rig, but she could reinforce it and use it. She's not tied in by the same one design rules as we are, so she actually changed to a 2 sort of jib configuration at the front. So she's got a much larger J2,
Right.
and a larger J3, and then they've got this sort of ORC sail, which is like a combination sort of J4y.
Oh wow, that's quite cool.
So effectively, she's probably got less sail changes to do, and I think, as you'll agree, that's a good thing. And I think
definitely a good
as the
thing,
boats
yeah.
get faster, they're more like the multi-hulls of old, where you got more sails sort of hanging in the air, and you're sort of choosing between those as you are hoisting sails all the time and dropping them.
Yeah.
You kind of got in 2008, you could have like 12 sails or something in there. Obviously, that's dropped right down.
Yeah, and actually, again, kind of looking at the back here, I know that structure across the back was something that Sam had made for her to help shift the sails across that gap there. But I think I prefer the look of Damien's one, actually.
Yeah.
We're now next to Parts1and Group, and we've stopped here because this boat was a sister ship to ours, and it does actually still have the small foils. So there are 3 now with small foils. But Giancarlo has done quite a big bow modification, so he's chopped and changed 6 meters of his bow to a completely new shape. So if we look at Group Aperseal's bow there, that's more like our bow. And then you can see Giancarlo's, it's got a hard chine in it, and it kind of exits the water quite early. And the idea with that bow is to stop the nose diving when the boat's really at speed with the foils. And I know Giancarlo kind of hasn't really, he only had the work finished and the boat launched a couple of weeks before the Bermude meal. So I don't think he's had a proper chance to really get to grips with this, but this race should be quite interesting for him. Boat's looking really good actually, isn't it?
It's a nice, sharp, clean looking boat. I think he wanted to do that first and then make his decision on the foils closer to the race, which is probably a sensible thing to do.
Yeah, it does look good. I think I've got bow envy. I also like this. Can we have that, please?
What, the Italian flag?
Not Italian. Maybe we could have a British one there.
So, you're missing the... Yeah, his cockpit's interesting because he's just got really, they've gone for a really low centre of gravity. So you can see all his winches are sort of at shin height, which just moves everything down. The negative of that is that you've got to try and then get all the sheets, runners, main sheet, everything then down and forwards again to those winches. But that's all about trying to stop water getting into the actual cockpit.
Looks quite comfortable though for the driver.
Yeah. Very small. You wouldn't want to do much team racing in that.
Right, so we are next to Apivia. So this is a 2019 Vendee boat, and it was the boat that got line honours in the 2020 Vendée Globe, but then Charlie dropped down to second place because of the time allowance that Yannick was given for taking part in the rescue of Kevin Escoffier. However, this boat has been cleaning up ever since. It is weapon fast, and Charlie is weapon fast. Interesting things about this, I think, is the concave bow, the concave deck on the bow. Which what's the purpose of that?
A few reasons. I think windage is one. It also creates a stiffer structure because just by putting shape into that deck gives if you think of the hull and the deck as one sort of beam, it sort of gives it more dimensions, which gives it stiffness compared to just a flat deck, which you then need to have toe rails or beams underneath. By putting that shape into it, it just makes that whole structure much stronger. Might be some sort of jib end platey type thing as well, but I think probably windage and just creating a lighter structure are probably the main motivations. And it certainly must funnel a lot of water down that way, and then I think it basically all exits through the...
There must be a lot of water on there, yeah. And then we can see the foils here. I mean, you can see the cord on these foils compared to ours is very different, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different. And he broke one in the Vendee, which is why he wasn't further ahead in that race. He was limping around to some extent, but yeah, it's a really nice boat. Really experienced team behind it, so a lot of resources. Immaculate, and they keep it immaculately. It's a really nice boat.
And so this boat is going to be sailed by Clarice for Banque Populaire next year, and Apivia have a new one in build that I think is being launched in the beginning of 2023. So this is Roman Atanasio, 40 net Best Western pure, and same age hull as us, and it's a VPLP Verdier, but it's got big foils, and you can see the foils. So this one has foils that exit out of the deck. So every other one we've been looking at, I think every one we've been looking at has foils that are in cases inside and under the deck. And these ones come through the deck, so it's a different mechanism. What's the benefit of these then?
I think it's just a generation. So it is the same as, well, very similar to Hare. So it's from that same year, I think he did that modification from VPLP did that work, and it's just kind of about where you want the foil to end up when you're heeled, and what the shape of your foil is. Because effectively, if you look down the dock, you could draw any shape foil and there would be a reason for doing it, because they're all so different. There is a consensus forming, but sort of prior to the last race, sort of anything goes, and pretty much it seems. So it's all about where you want the sort of working part of the foil, which is sort of the elbow through there, where you want that positioned in the water.
Right.
When you're heeled, and there's sort of various different ways of getting there depending on what shape you are. But you also have the problem with the boats where it's all enclosed, in that you run out of room inside.
Yeah.
So if they share a sort of horseshoe shaped case inside the boat, then with the shaft lengths that they were looking at in the last race, you end up sort of coming together in the middle. So if you want a longer foil, then you need it to exit out of the deck.
Right. Yeah.
I think if you can keep it inside the boat, it's probably better. And there's obviously better windage, and
yeah, I think I'm not mad on the amount of things that could get stuck around that as well. Sure. Yeah. So continuing down this way, we are coming up to Isabelle Joschka, MACSF, and this boat was a 2007 VPLP Verdier that was converted to take foils. And I think Isabel's been working quite hard on kind of making this boat, adapting this boat to suit her as a person.
Yeah.
So thinking really hard about the work that she needs to do and how to make it physically easier and more suitable for her.
Yeah. So I think this is probably the best example here of how you can sort of regenerate a boat. It started off life as a 2007 Safran, conventional boards, classic spreader mast, and you look at it now, there's all features that you can recognise, but it's effectively become, very similar to a newer boat. It's got this one design mast. It's got really nice foils, from, I think they must have done those quite late last time for the last race. They've done a little bow mod. It's got that same rig configuration that we were looking at down the other end on Meekleen, where they've got the
that
big
Sam had, yeah.
big J2,
Yeah.
J3, and then that there I think is probably like their RRC on deck. I think she had problems in the last race. Again, I think the problem, if you've got a 2007 boat, is that there's inherent problems sort of built in from that era, and especially as this was a Safran, so it's really pushed to the limits on I think elements of the keel, and probably in the build, where because they had so much technical support they really pushed the boundaries, and I think there's probably a bit of leftover problems, well not problems but weaknesses maybe from that era, and then when you're sort of trying to sail the boat several years later, that they come through, which I think is what happened to her in the last race.
She had her keel. She had a problem with her keel, didn't she?
Pinned rotor.
Yeah. And actually, so one of the things that Isabel has here, if we come and look in the cockpit, is she has foot pedals on her pedestal.
Wow.
I don't know how well that works for her, but it's an interesting adaptation. And kind of in recognition of, she's very, very small, Isabel. Oh, nice little ramps. Look at those. Check those ramps out. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all a bit under winch, these boats. The key, because the next size up of winches is quite a lot bigger, and obviously we're always trying to keep weight down. So the sort of typical sort of Harkin 65 winches, which is similar across the fleet, is really on its limits, and we have a lot of winch problems. Ours having done 2 laps of the world, so you do lack, right at the end of a wind, you do end up lacking a bit of power. Obviously Isabel's got quite a small frame, so
yeah, for sure, it's hard work. And now we're moving down to Hublot, which is the new boat for Alain Rohrer. So Alan's finished the Vendee twice, and he is the youngest person ever to finish a Vendee. He did it when he was 23 to start off with. I've known Alan for quite a while. I did the 2013 Mini Transat with him, so it's always good to see him on the dock. And his new machine was Hugo Boss last time, so he's bought himself quite a handful. And interestingly, this boat has one of the biggest sail areas downwind, so this has got 630 square metres downwind, which is quite a lot of sail. What's the main sort of features about this? Of course, the big thing about this is the fully enclosed cockpit, and it's quite far forwards as well.
it is, yeah, and it's got well, there's one other boat that had foils that shape in the last race. So that is quite distinctive, which is very much sort of a downwind foil configuration.
Yeah, no, Alan's really been struggling. I mean, the Bermude Meal was 50% upwind, and he really struggled with it as an upwind race, because this boat does not like upwind.
Yeah, I mean, I think this for the last edition, this was probably one of the most. I think they probably had again an unlimited budget, and a lot of resources went into it. You can see the top side, you can see that, Lee, but where you can see the carbon fibre. So the boat was very nicely built by Jason Carrington. You can see that finish just came straight out of the mould, which is pretty.
That's beautiful, actually, isn't it?
Pretty good. And in fact, Hugo Boss was inlaid in a different coloured.
Was it?
Into the mould, so I don't know quite. I was just interested. They've obviously had to paint that bit out black, but I was interested to see how they've actually done that. But really nicely built. But sadly had structural problems in the last race and didn't finish. So yeah.
So you can see here on the deck cover, there's a little flap there. So that's kind of one way into the cockpit, and the cockpit is further forward than that deck cover. And then there's a separate part aft of that and a hatch to get in through the back. Alan says he's getting on really well with the kind of fully enclosed sailing, but I mean, you are just in a pod.
Yeah, I feel sorry for these guys at the start of a race because you can't effectively have to have a helmsman outside with comms to the people inside controlling the sails, but it's I think it always looks pretty stressful and hectic.
It's interesting because the rudders look, I don't know whether it's just the way they're kicked up, but they look quite close together.
Yeah, they do. It's quite it's quite narrow in the back, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot going on. You can see how much. I think it's one of those things because of the way the cockpit is. They have to bring everything to the back of the boat and then lead it forward, as we've seen on some of the other boats. But it's just a bit more extreme on this thing. They've got quite nicely on this boat. They've got the iridiums on each quarter because traditionally they're kind of in the middle of the boat. But when the boat's heeled and you're in the south, whatever, they don't necessarily get good coverage with or get good reception. So they put theirs outboard, and when you're heeled, it should theoretically the windward one should have good eyesight on the satellites.
But you've got to buy two for that.
But you have to buy two, yeah. And obviously he hasn't got a fleet, so he's reliant on the iridium system.
Yeah.
Whereas we've got two sat systems.
And now we're moving down to Linked Out, Advent Cybersecurity. So this is definitely one of the kind of top guys in the fleet at the moment, Tom Orion. And this is another 2019 Vendee, so similar to Pivia.
Yeah.
Really nicely prepared, incredibly well sailed. They've got another boat in build for next year as well. So interesting foil tips on this one.
Yeah.
Slightly different. What's all that about?
Tip vortex, I think.
I say.
Not that I can say any more about it than that. I just know a lot of people that know a lot of stuff. I don't know much myself. Yeah, it's just how they're dealing with all of the vortex. You might.
So it really does look like a plane wing, though, doesn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah. This boat was so at one point, and for a very brief point, they were thinking of using a one design IMOCA effectively for the ocean race, and they went as far as building certainly designing it, I think building the tooling at Persico, and that's where this boat came from. So I think it's a very sort of good all-round performance, this boat, similar to a Pivia, I think. Seems to do well whatever the conditions. And that probably comes from it having been designed for the ocean race, which is a more variable course, obviously, than the stuff we traditionally do. But again, always immaculately turned out, very well presented boat.
So we're now next to Guyot Water Family, which is the new boat for Benjamin Detroit, who made his debut in the 2020 Vendee and sailed an incredible race in a non-foiling boat. So he's now bought this boat, which was 11th hour. So it didn't do the Vendee in 2020. It was kind of being prepared for or part of an ocean race program for 11th hour racing. And prior to that, it was Hugo Boss.
It was, yeah. I built this, I managed to build this boat for them in 2014-15. You can see where 11th Hour have had it. They've put very current foils on as part of their program to sort of understand what they wanted to put into their new boat. And they also did quite a lot of work on the cockpit. It used to have a sliding hatch similar to our boat, and they fixed that. I think they've done quite a lot in this back end. I can't really remember what they've done, but it's very different to how we had it. But effectively, they were just using it as a trial horse to see what they wanted to do with their new boat. And so I think certainly learning to sail these boats with 5 people, it's not the easiest thing. So I think a lot of effort went into the design and ergonomics of how they can actually live and work on this boat, so they could put all of that knowledge into the new boat.
And so there's quite a cool little feature there. So most of us are keeping our outriggers, so the sticks that we put out at the back of the boat to support the spinnaker sheets, most of us keep them down the side of the boat, but you can see they're kind of slotted into...
They've got holsters.
Yeah, that's quite cool.
So I mean, it's just about limiting time spent doing things. So effectively from there, I guess they can just push them straight out.
And also the risk, you that's not going to get washed off by a wave, is it?
It's not.
Yeah, that's good. Another one for the list, Joff.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are moving on to Fabrice Amadeo with Nexans, Arts and Fenetras, and multiple other sponsors. This is a sister ship to us again, but the really super interesting thing about this is that Fabrice has fitted these new foils over the winter, which were Alex Thompson's spare foils,
Yeah,
were they?
spares for his last boat. Yeah. So again, it's an economy, and you're also buying something that that you know works. There's a lot of very detailed design in terms of how you get these foils up and down and how you control the rake of them. And he bought this package, but he also, with that, he got the support from the technical team of the old Hugo Boss team. I think they were there to help install it and get the system up and running, which is obviously, for a small team with a lower budget, sort of takes you further down the track quicker. So yeah, sensible decision. I mean, they look massive on this boat, is what I would say, because the new boats just generally, their hulls are bigger and have a bigger feel about them, so they look massive. And obviously you've got, as I was saying earlier, you've just got any number of different shapes of these things. But obviously the downside of this boat is that you have a lot of windage when they're up. But on the downside, if you don't need foils, if you're fully VMG downwind or use light airs,
They're really
you can retract them a lot.
Yeah.
But obviously you've got a lot of, it takes the centre of gravity up high, and you've got that windage up there.
And so another interesting thing there is his little cover in front of the mast.
Yeah, I think he's probably got some. I don't know. I think he's probably got some antennas in there, and a bit of aero, I guess, making that junction of the mast boom and deck spreaders, whatever, and coach reef. As part when because of the increased weight of the boat, when you change foils, there's a lot of weight goes into the structure in reinforcing the structure, and the foils are obviously much heavier, the later generations compared to ours, so you have to add buoyancy to the top of the boat for more to correct the stability for the IMOCA rules. He's done quite a nice job of shaping that in, I think, probably.
And he's got quite a big cockpit, hasn't he? Looks big anyway.
Yeah.
And then finally, down this side of the dock, we have Kojiro Shiriashi. Oh, sorry, Koji. Need to learn to pronounce people's surnames better. So DMG Mori. I think, and I was looking it up, I think Koji might be the oldest competitor in the fleet now. At 55. Yeah. So this is the sister ship to Charal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, they were late to the party bit for 2020, so they bought into the Charal program just to speed things along and try and sort of smooth the process.
Are these foils smaller though? They look smaller.
I think they're the V. I think Charal went to V2s after they were built.
Oh,
I think these are the V1s.
okay,
But again,
right.
you can see they come out through the deck.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a good example. You can kind of see there that basically you can't have them both up together. So I think the port foil is retracted more than the starboard foil. But yeah, nice boat. It's been in Japan, I think, all of last year doing corporate stuff, so they didn't do the TJV.
No, and I think they did quite a lot of work over the winter as well. So Kojiro did the 2020 Vendee and ripped his mainsail in half, which kind of held him back, and he finished less than 24 hours ahead of me. So I think the next one he's kind of hoping to be up the fleet.
Yeah, he did an incredible job. He basically, the sail was completely ripped in two, and he sort of overlapped it and stuck it together with, I think, 3 tubes of Sika. And it held all the way, a bit of stitching, but not a lot, and it held together all the way around the rest of the world. Incredible. I certainly hadn't given it much hope of lasting, but he got it all the way around the world. You can see he's got quite good viz on this boat. He's got like a little dome there, so he can sit out.
That's quite cool.
With the sails.
Yeah, actually, I like that. You could kind of look up and see if your Cunningham was fouled. back on the other side of the dock now, and the final boat in the fleet, which is another non-foiler. So this is a 2007 VPLP design. It's raced by Conrad Coleman and it's called Imagine. It was, you can probably tell from the green livery, so it was V&B in the Vendee, raced by Maxime Sorel. Maxime has now got a new boat in build. I think he's got a manoir in build, hasn't he? Yeah, so this one has been bought by Conrad now. And what can you tell us about this? This has got quite a checkered history actually, hasn't it?
Yes, I think it's probably the most unlucky boat in the fleet. It's built in 2007 for the 2008 race. I think in the Transat 2008, Quito de Pavon broke his leg before the Transat.
Oh wow!
And then it lost its rig in the first or second night of the Vendee.
Oh blimey!
So didn't finish a single race under that.
And in 2016, Tom Ariel had it, didn't he? Isn't this the one that broke in half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for Maxime, the same fracture started to appear in the deck. And I think it lost its rig again, like a Barcelona race or something. But it was a really it's quite a novel boat at the time, sort of similar-ish to Safran, and it was it's just a really nice boat, but it's just had it has had no luck at all, and now it's green, which is worse.
And interestingly, actually, I was reading in the statistics about this. Apparently, this one has 700 square metres of downwind sail, which seems extraordinary.
Yeah, but people just make that up. People from the comms team phone people like me up and go, how many square metres are the sails? And then we don't look it up, we just guess. So I think you can never...
That is a huge amount of downwind sail.
Never, I wouldn't... Yeah, a pinch of salt with all those numbers, because we generally just make it up.
So there we go, the tour of the dock. Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to look for the tracker link later in the week so we can share the live race with you.